Hi, this is Julie of Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to take a vintage pendant and really alter it and embellish it with vintage patinas and Lisa Pavelka Magic-Glos, which is a UV one-part resin. So you can see the before and the after. It's really quite easy to do, but I think the result is really pretty, so I want to show you how to do it here in this video. I do have one other example of this piece here. This is another piece of vintage where I did a similar technique. You can see it really brings out the details and changes the look of the piece quite a bit. So I have three pieces here. We have the finished example. We have one that we're just going to keep the way it is, so we have a good before and after. And then I'm going to show you on this piece how to do it. You're going to need a piece of vintage or whatever piece of jewelry you're wanting to do this technique on. It's one that is easily adaptable to a lot of different things. A vintage relief block if you are using vintage and you have this nice dark natural brass, we're going to want to pull out the shiny under brass or use a relief block. Some Magic-Glos. We're going to be using three different colors of patina. We have emerald, ochre, and lapis. And then to make them a little bit looser and not quite as opaque, we're going to be using the glaze as a patina extender to create more of a wash effect. And then you're going to need a disposable paintbrush, some toothpicks, a little bit of water, some paper towels, something to mix your paints on, and then I'm using a UV light as well. And then to have on hand, I have a business card here that I'm going to be using as a way of transferring my piece to the UV light without actually having to touch it once I put my resin on there, because that's pretty important that you don't jiggle it too much. So let's begin. So first off, we really want to pull out the detail of this piece of vintage because it's so pretty as it is, but there's a lot happening that we're just not seeing because of how dark it is. So we've got a relief block and we're just going to scrape over the top of it, like so. And you see already just with one swipe how much detail is coming out. And I really want to pull out a lot of detail. Okay, so already you see the before and after is quite dramatic on this. So now we're going to add some color. Like I mentioned, I'm just using a disposable paintbrush and just a plastic baggie here as my paint palette. I do want to start with the green. Just going to put a little bit on my baggie, and then I am going to use the glaze as the extender. If I applied it just as is with the green, it would be quite, thick is not really the right word, it would just be very opaque, it'd be very solid. So I want it to be a little looser. You can already see how it's loosening it up. And you want to have a paper towel handy. I'm going to go ahead and just get it ready right here because I know I'm going to be wiping away some of this paint as I go, because I want a really subtle effect. And I might want even a little bit more glaze. If you have a really fine paintbrush, of course you could use that as well. It might be a little easier to do a little bit more precision work. There we go, I like that. I like it a little bit more watery. And I'm just going to blot some of it away. There we go with the green. Okay, now let's go ahead and add a little bit of yellow for the flowers. Okay, and I do want to blot some of that away as well. And I'm going to add a little bit more green. There we go. Just very subtle on this piece. So my last color is going to be blue for the little birdie. And you can definitely take this technique and use it on other items as well. Just keep in mind when you're picking out the piece you might be doing this to, if it has a lot of detail, that really helps with this technique. So a lot of recesses where the paint can go into and a lot of different things happening. That way you can pull out the different elements with the paint. And I am happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to apply the resin on top of it and cure it in the UV light, and then you'll be able to see the finished piece. Our patina is now dry and we are ready to add our UV resin, and this actually does look really pretty just as is. So you could leave it like this. You don't need to seal it with anything. The patinas are made to work with metal, so you'd be good to go. But I really like the high shine of the UV resin, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. So to start, I'm going to place it on my little platform, because once I put the resin on it, I'm not going to want to actually touch it again. And I'm going to use a toothpick to spread my resin, because I'm going to want to go very slowly and pay particular attention to this hole, because I don't want to accidentally fill it in. So I'm just going to place a couple drops in the center. And it's really nice how easy it is to apply this. That nozzle is great. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with the 2 drops. I'll come back and do more if I need to. So I just need a really thin layer, and I'm just going to spread it with the toothpick. And I do want some more. Again, just in the center. There we go. And as I'm working with this, I can tell you there's not much odor to it. Whenever you are working with any type of resin, you always work in a well-ventilated area, but this is nice because there's really not much odor to this guy. So you see I'm just dragging the resin along. And pushing it out to the sides. And it is nice to have the little platform here, which is just a business card turned upside down so I can rotate it. Now we're to the tricky part, is we want to pay close attention to that hole. We don't want to fill it with resin because we're then not going to be able to use a jump ring to attach this to whatever piece of jewelry it's going to eventually live with. I think it's going to be a pretty little simple chain that we're going to hang this from. So I'm being really cautious, and I'm okay if I don't get resin right up to that hole. Just going to go ahead and make sure he has a little on his tail. All right, and I feel like I'm ready to go. And by doing it very slowly and carefully and dragging the resin, you can see I really didn't end up with any bubbles, which is nice. And if you did have some, you could really just pull them out with the toothpick. So another advantage to doing it like this. So we're going to turn on our light. And then we are going to very carefully, and I'm actually going to slide this off the table so it stays level. Pick it up, keeping it level and parallel to my table. I'm just going to scoot it into the lamp. And we are going to keep it there for 15 minutes, and then it will be ready to be made into a lovely piece of jewelry. our 15 minutes is up. It's time to take this out of the UV light, and it is fully cured. You can see what it looks like. So I do want to show you now just the comparison. So here's before, here's after. It was not hard to do. It was really actually quite quick and easy, but I think you end up with a really unique finished piece. You can find all the supplies for this project and more tutorials at beadaholique.com.